Hello, one and all. Welcome to another episode of the A2theK Wrestling Show. As always, I am Carl. Joining me as always, the man who puts the fucking A in A2theK. It's Anthony. Say hello to the people.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
No, I kid, of course. Made up to be back for another week, Carl, as always. And honestly, I'm really excited for this week's unique segment. I think we're going to have some fun with that one. No spoilers, guys. No spoilers. But it was the one we mentioned last week. Have we got a proper title for this? I'm sure you've given it a proper title now.
I've tried to give it a proper title, so I think we are calling it. Obviously, it's part of 10, but it's 10 worst moments in pro wrestling to show a non-wrestling fan.
So exactly, I think that's probably the best title we can give it. But essentially, guys, this is the stuff that you would be annoyed if, let's say somebody walked in on you watching your favorite wrestling show, and this just happened to be the bit that was on the screen. That the stuff you just really struggle to justify as part of pro wrestling. I think is the key sort of ones we're trying to hit, and I am looking forward to the conversation, Carl, because some of these I think they're either too new to be controversial yet, or maybe somewhat debatable. Certainly a couple to my mind that I'm like, I don't know, either you may not agree with this or our audience may not agree with this, but I personally feel like over time it is definitely going to be one of these. But again, we'll talk about that when we get to it, Carl. We'll talk about that when we get to it. Now, obviously, before I run through the headlines for this week, we have A2theK's little known fact of the week, Carl.
We certainly do.
Do you want to introduce and run us through?
Well, that's it. Sing it in, Road Dog.
Oh, you didn't know?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, Anthony.
Go by me. There we go.
It is time, as you said, for A2theK's little known fact of the week. And did you know? What have I said to you, Anthony? You know, here is somebody with an impressive resume of wins. What have I told you? Someone had wins over the likes of Stone Cold Steve Austin, Triple H, Kurt Angle, Edge and Christian, Carlito, Shane McMahon, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, and John Cena. Now, you probably think, yeah, it's pretty decent, actually. That's going to be someone pretty big, right? You'd think that.
I would, to be honest, I don't know why, but in my head, I'm like, is it Vince McMahon? Because he's booked himself to beat a lot of top stars. But
see, that isn't a bad guess. However, I'm going to throw you a curveball. What have I told you? The person with that resume is actually a woman.
Then my mind instinctively, especially because a lot of these stars are from this era, would probably go to China.
Okay. And what have I told you? That was wrong too. Madness.
Philippines, Carl. I have no idea.
So, the person who is able to boast that resume is none other than Lita. Because, of course, over the course of her career, as well as being one of the standout women competitors, she was also involved in many a mixed tag match. Obviously, initially with S.A. Rios and the Hardys, and later on with Edge. And so she is being able to amass victories over all them people that have said she's beat Stone Cold, she's beat Triple H, she's beat John Cena. So for me, that makes her the absolute GOAT of all women's wrestlers. Because who else can say that?
True Hall of Famer.
Who else can say that?
Well, not me.
Exactly, me neither. And that was this week's little known fact of the week. And here's Road Dogg to sing us out.
Oh, you didn't know?
Perfect.
You know what? Not to talk shop here, Carl, before we move on to our headlines, but did you know last week was the first time we were able to use our glorious soundbite, because there are not too many things in wrestling that are in fact glorious these days. And we got a copyright strike for it.
So, oh no.
That's good.
That's not good at all.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't really matter. We don't monetize, so.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is that. But still, yeah, that is surprising. So, we can get the pipes of Road Dogg every week, but as soon as you get glorious.
Crazy, isn't it?
Well,
they don't want us to be glorious, clearly.
Did you know as well, probably, again, to be saved for a future little known fact of the week, but the glorious theme tune was actually once thought about for Shinsuke Nakamura. Weird.
That is crazy. Did you know, while we're doing these music fun facts, Carl, look, I'll throw one at you. Did you know that Montez Ford and they were the Street Profits, because I can't remember the other guy's name now, Angelo Dawkins, their theme music was actually previously used for Team Bad.
I didn't know that either. Wow, that's fucking lazy, isn't it?
Remixed, albeit remixed, but the lyrics of when their song kicks off, the lyrics are roughly the same. That eeny, meeny, miny, woe bit is all from the original Team Bad music.
Well, I never.
And I have to thank Lou Nonsense on TikTok for that little fact.
Okay. Well, all I can say on that is lazy bastards, Anthony. Lazy bastards.
So, speaking of lazy bastards, Carl, should we go through the news?
Let's do it.
Not sure that works, but Yeah. So, Carl, coming up tonight in the Ringside Report, we have the potential of MVP wrestling in an upcoming house show. Or upcoming house shows. We have, sadly, even more WWE releases. We have Booker T losing a lawsuit against Activision. We have WWE returning to the UK. We have Chris Jericho calling out WWE stars for criticism over the blood and guts. We have Kevin Owens possibly taking some time off. We have AEW's Trent undergoing successful neck fusion surgery. We have Jade Cargill, again, AEW, talking about the Floyd Mayweather exhibition with Logan Paul and her feelings towards that. We have, I didn't pronounce this wrong, has been among all the stars who were released, but for slightly different reasons. And lastly, Carl, we have Miro taking a shot at Charlotte Flair, or so it would seem.
Ooh.
So, would you like to kick us off with the MVP?
The MVP of the show is MVP. Straight up balling. So apparently, word on the grapevine is he's getting back in the ring, Anthony. So, he has been advertised for some of the upcoming WWE house shows. So as we know, WWE are planning on returning to doing touring across the US and later in the UK. And it's been noted that MVP is down to potentially compete in tag team competition. So him and Bobby Lashley is being advertised to take on Drew McIntyre and Kofi Kingston for these house shows and the road tour. So interesting, really, because obviously he came back in the previous year's Royal Rumble. We've seen him sporadically. Was he the US title, the US champ for a bit? Maybe, possibly.
Yeah, I think he took it from Apollo. It got very messy, that scene, very quickly, because I think he took it from Apollo and then did Apollo get it back and then Shelton had it briefly, or actually Lashley might have had it and then Shelton had it. It got very, very messy, but it was definitely within his grasp at one point during his return, yes.
Exactly. So we have seen him compete somewhat recently, but yeah, somewhat of a surprise at the same time to see him advertised for in-ring competition. So it's been quite a while since he was in the ring. He's been predominantly just the mouthpiece now for Lashley, no longer the Hurt Business.
I think it's interesting that it's a house show as well. Like, you think they'd keep those appearances for ones that are going to be massively televised, given his legend status, but yeah, I find it interesting it's for house shows.
Yeah,
I'm sure that'll bleed over, don't be wrong, but
yeah, I mean, maybe they're not planning to put him, in matches on camera. Maybe he just wants to stay ring ready and get back on the ring, and so they're like, okay, fine, you can do house shows.
Time to have a bit of fun with it,
But I don't know. I think obviously he's not really lost a step from what I've seen. The few times he has wrestled, so
he's a badass in and out of the ring. He's like, what is it, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion of some sort as well, isn't he? Like, so
yeah.
He knows what he's doing.
Just a bit. So yeah, interesting to see. Is that going to cross over onto telly? Is it just going to be for the touring schedule? Who knows? But interesting little tidbit that we might end up seeing on our screens at some point.
Indeed. But speaking of people we've seen on our screens, Cal, there are a number of people we will no longer be seeing on our screens. So sadly, and it feels like a fucking weekly update at this point, WWE have released yet again a number of superstars. So in brief, we've got Fandango, both members of Tyler Breeze, and Fandango and Tyler. I thought I said Breezango. Anyway, they're both gone. We had Tony Nese. We've had Everrise. We've had Daivari and August Gray. And that was the initial sort of ones. And then we later found out that Killian Dane had also been released, along with the Bollywood Boys, Marina Shafir, and Kurt Stallion. Now, their ones, I believe, were more 205 based. And I'm not saying, it's justified 205, but, when you go, well, I kind of get why they might have been starting to release some 205 live people, because the show itself isn't doing very well. But that being said, we've also seen the Cruiserweight title and Cruiserweight wrestlers blend very well onto NXT, so it's actually no excuse. But in any case, they've released a number from 205 as well. And obviously this has been, a week, maybe 2 weeks since the other set of releases where we saw the likes of Braun Strowman and that leave. It's just a shocking amount of stars going at this point, and I just really don't know what their end game is now.
Yeah, I mean, how do you feel? I think predominantly it is a lot of NXT talent, really, pretty much all.
Well, certain ones like this is what I don't like. The women's NXT tag team division's doing actually quite well. I think I've said that a few times. As much as I wanted it to be the women's tag belts across all three brands, they've got a good few tag teams there, and it seems to be going quite well. And it doesn't seem to be feeling overdone or repetitive in any way. The men's tag scene hasn't really been that strong for me. And, we had the potential there with the Grizzled Young Vets going up against Tommaso and Tim, and it looked like that, whoever's going to be going will be going next. But obviously all these things have to come to an end. And like this week, I was going to actually even commend Everrise, because they had a really banger of a match for this week in wrestling. And, I've not even got to that point because I'll have to talk about it later. But now it's like, well, they're not there anymore. So
this is what is baffling to me,
because and I'm just like, oh, okay, it like you say, I think I know what you're going to say, but it is particularly baffling. It's like these are people who I've literally just seen on my screen.
Yeah, and like that happened last time as well, with like some of the other releases. So it really doesn't make any sense. Like for me, Everrise, I think I've always been a bit critical of them because I just see them as like Young Bucks light. Like I think they draw too much from the Young Bucks and are trying to kind of emulate them. So that isn't too much of a shock to me. But the likes of Breezango, I don't know. I think they, to turn a phrase that I say often, is they literally took chicken shit and turned it into chicken salad, because they were both done and they had no chance, and they were like, well, I don't know, let's team them up and see what happens. And they were so good together. They had the old,
that's the weird thing. Like on paper, that should not have worked.
Exactly, and like they got over as that little comedy tag team duo, and yeah, I don't know, like it's a shame, and obviously.
I know they've not really been on screen in a while, and they haven't really done this sort of thing in a while. But like, do you remember when they were going up against Imperium and they mimicked their entrance and everything? All those little notes were just really, really fun, and they were a really good tag team. It's just and they should have been a good staple in the NXT tag team division.
Definitely,
it's baffling.
And I think obviously Killian Dane, he's gone as well. Obviously, husband of Nikki Cross and tag team partner of Drake Maverick, and. Yeah, that's what does that mean for them too?
I don't know if it was a work or it wasn't initially a work and ended up being a work, but Drake obviously was on the chopping block last year. I don't know how true that was in the end.
I refuse to believe that was a work, because it would be so insensitive to fire a bunch of people except one and use it as a storyline.
Yeah, every 1 in 10 is actually a work. That would be
like
shitty, wouldn't it?
Well, I mean, it happened with Samoa Joe as well. Let's be honest, that was a work too.
You may have a point here, but now, but I actually think when he was released, his the video he put up on his social medias was very heartfelt and seemed really genuine. So, like, no offense to Drake Maverick, but but if it was a work, I'm like really impressed with his acting skill, because I didn't think he was like that good,
Yeah.
But I think it was like they saw how much people got behind them and turned it around. Because like, how do you look at a tag team? Look, there's two tag teams here they've released, and you look at Killian Dane and Drake Maverick and only get rid of Killian Dane. It's like they don't have the guts to chop Drake Maverick again.
Yeah, I mean, I am worried for him, to be fair, because where does he go now from here? Like 205 Live is pretty much dead.
Well, I think they ruined that run. I honestly think he should. As much as I have really got behind, or did at the time he was champion anyway. I really got behind. I should know his name. Santos Escobar. As the champion, but I think the culmination to that story should have been Drake Maverick winning the belt for however long he did. He's a cruiserweight. Bottom line, he doesn't look realistic with the rest of them, and this is on NXT, where even the biggest guys aren't really the biggest guys. Do you know what I mean? So like, yeah, he's definitely a cruiserweight, and with the state of the cruiserweight division, I totally get why you'd be worried, because they seem to be releasing a lot of the cruiserweights and not putting a lot of faith into 205.
No. Yeah, it's I don't know. More releases continue. Who knows? Is this going to be the last of them? Are we going to see more again?
Week with next week's release.
But yeah, I think we'll cover this when we talk about This Week in Wrestling. But part of me does fear now for Nikki Cross as well.
I don't know. Like it's what I think. The superhero thing does worry me a bit, because it's like they've gone, all right, we'll give you a chance with this, and she now has to get that over. And I'll be honest, it's not working as well as, like, because so many people have gone, well, it's not that ridiculous. Look at Hurricane and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know. It's just because of how sudden she's now a superhero. It just like Hurricane came into it, that character.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And
like, this is what I always struggle with wrestling. Like, Hurricane came into WWE. Admittedly, barring a few matches where we probably didn't really even realize it was Shane Helms, he came into WWE prominently as Hurricane, and then over time phased out the superhero stuff. And then when they were doing the, I think it was the cruiserweight division again, funnily enough, on SmackDown, he played a very serious character, Shane Helms with a beanie on, basically. And the phase from goofy superhero character to serious guy feels more natural than serious guy to goofy superhero. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's sort of the problem I've got with Nikki Cross, is like, I've seen you as the Scottish psychopath, and I've seen you like be a very serious wrestler. All right, a little bit goofy with Alexa Bliss, but an actual person. And then suddenly it's like, I'm a superhero now. It's like, I don't know, just doesn't feel as feels like it should go the other way around. But,
yeah, it feels mad to me to think of Sanity when they turned up in NXT. I was quite a big fan, to be fair. To think she's the only one left, and she's now on the main roster and is a superhero gimmick, just kind of speaks volumes between the difference of NXT and the main roster. But
yeah,
anyway, hopefully this is the last of them. But as you said, we're probably going to be here next week or the week after. And
I don't want to make this about the two companies, because I know people love to make them rival each other, even when they're not really rivaling each other. But I'm so relieved that we're not just seeing an onslaught of WWE people coming over to AEW. As much as anytime someone from WWE comes over to AEW, people like to moan, like, it's Impact all over again. But like, there's like, they've literally flooded them with options, and it's not like they've jumped on it and then just was like 90 days is up on quite a few of these people now, and we haven't seen tons of them rock up, which I am quite relieved on, to be honest.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, AEW have been phenomenal in not releasing anyone during this pandemic, and in fact giving people work when they would not have been able to have any work otherwise. So they've been an absolute credit, I think, to the business. Quite a contrast to WWE, but at the same time, AEW can't maintain this size roster themselves for forever. So I do think we're going to see a couple of people who maybe weren't signed officially kind of dwindle away, and maybe some of the ones who are signed.
They're not really being used. I mean, you never know. They might be able to salvage it if they get this second show off the ground quick enough. They might not have to do any releases from their contracted people, because as I understand it, the independents they've got on Dark and that, it's more about exposure for them. I don't know how much they're actually getting. They probably get some amounts, but probably nowhere near like the likes of your contracted stars. But for them, I mean, obviously, if they're getting some exposure on Dark and selling some merch, then it's a win as well in it. But I do take your point on that. I just hope that
to be fair,
in August, the second show, and if it does well enough, we've got enough room. We've got a bit of breathing space then.
not to sidebar too much, but a point you just made then reminded me of something. Is that Maki Ito, when she came over for the women's tournament, she was a relative unknown and got really over, with a lot of mainstream fans. And now I think she's the top selling merch on Pro Wrestling Tees. And it's well, there you go.
So you can't deny that it does work. Do you know what I mean? In that sense, they've given her the exposure and she's made money from that. Happy days.
Exactly.
Does the job and it does work.
Yep. So, yeah.
So,
another sad week.
News that really, but
hopefully not too many more in the coming weeks that we have to report on. The next one to talk about is Booker T. He was in a bit of a legal battle with Activision. So, as part of the Call of Duty game Black Ops 4, there was a character in there who Booker T had belief that they had taken creative inspiration from his time as G.I. Bro. Now, since then in WCW, he's gone on to use that character and make a comic book out of it, and he's paid for his own kind of artwork and all that kind of stuff. And to be fair, it is quite a similar character model. So you can see where he's coming from.
And I'm hoping you might have some more insight on this, because from my basic point of view of it is, your character was called G.I. Bro, so I'm guessing you based that on someone, Booker, right? But let's ignore that for a sec. How different do you want him to be? He's meant to be an army guy. Do you know what I mean? I get that he's gonna look similar, but is it a deliberate, conscious effort? Probably not. What do you want him to do? Dressed as a clown instead of an army guy?
Yeah,
as I understand it, he's got a similar tack vest and he's got similar dreadlocks and all like that. So it's well, yeah, of course he kind of looks like him, but at the end of the day, your character, your GI Bro, was dressed as an army guy.
Yeah, pretty much. But I think there was a couple of things in there. So obviously the dreadlocks you've already mentioned. He had this kind of beanie or do-rag type thing on. And all the way down to the facial expressions Booker T is saying, as well as the tactical vest and stuff like that he wore. He just said, the similarities are too profound to be an accident.
And all the sound bites were, "Can you dig it?" and stuff like that, which was a bit on the nose.
On every fifth kill, he would just go 5 times. And then if
they call no, totally didn't even know he did that. No.
And then at the end of every kind of mission, he'd just start doing a spinneroonie, which was weird. But yeah, no comparison whatsoever. But so obviously Booker T took a bit of umbrage to this, and he took Activision to court for it. But Booker T has lost his appeal. So the ruling went against Booker T. And so, yeah, unfortunately, Booker T...
it is a difficult one. It must be a difficult one when you're considering this in court, because at what point is it too much like him? Because I joked about it before, but because he obviously based his character on some level, or certainly the play on name of G.I. Bro must have been some base around the G.I. Joe type army characters. So admittedly, I don't think he looks like the G.I. Joe character at all in terms of attire or anything. But my point being, it's well, you kind of get inspiration from places, and if they've took inspiration from Booker, can he is that wouldn't make a successful lawsuit, surely? Which clearly it didn't. But I just wonder at what point you go, yeah, that's too much of a likeness.
Yeah, I think what went against him is the piece of artwork that he had commissioned to try and get his comic book out. It was basically a picture of The Rock with Booker T's face superimposed on it. And so obviously the rebuttal from Activision was that can't be copyrighted anyway because it's a picture of The Rock. So, yeah. Weird one, but you can kind of...
unusual.
I don't know. You can kind of feel for Booker at the same time, because if you look at them, you can see similarities. But, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a bit of a stretch, I think. Yeah, to your point, there's only so many ways, and that you can kind of dress somebody and stuff. So
I don't want to be a negative guy about this, but I struggle to feel sorry for any part. I'm kind of we're all assholes here, because it's well, rich guy has dispute with rich company. Do I really care who wins here? you know, if no one's getting screwed over, really, you're both minted. So
Who wins?
let's
The lawyers. Yay.
get all the people you hired fucking fight for you. Nice one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's one of them where you go. It feels a little bit petty, if I'm honest, and I don't know. I don't know whether you agree with that or not. I doubt you do, given the way you're talking, actually. But I don't know. It just feels a little bit petty. I'm like, let it go, man.
I don't know. I think yeah.
Probably because, like, and it would never happen. But if I was suddenly in a Call of Duty game, I'd be like, "Have you seen that? That's fucking awesome." So, whatever.
Yeah, I think it's different people, different motivations, but I don't think
Obviously,
it's
different levels of fame. So yeah,
yeah, I don't think it's an uncanny likeness. I think you can see similarities, of course, but I think ultimately they've ruled right. You can't prove that it's a direct copy or anything like that. So
yeah, their Tucker B character looks nothing like him.
So wish he was called Tucker B.
So moving on, Carl, because I won't harp on too long about that now. The next one, fairly quick one, but just one that let's celebrate for a sec, Carl, because the WWE have announced, obviously during going back to live crowds, we've also got a live tour returning to the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Whoop and all that. So, Carl, we have dates now lined up. I believe this is sort of the last tour, which was due for 2020, was obviously cancelled due to the pandemic. So this one's going to kick off in Newcastle on September the 19th, Carl, of this year. Then we're going to head all the way down to London, to the O2 Arena for September the 20th. Then we're going to go back up to Cardiff hang on. I haven't got a date for Cardiff. I've not got a date for Cardiff, but we're going to wrap up in Glasgow on September the 22nd. I'm going to guess 21st for Cardiff, just because one was 19th, 20th, and 22nd. So Cardiff's probably the 21st.
Yeah, probably.
But a few locations and a few different dates for some WWE, which we don't get a great deal of live in this country. So happy days. I mean,
happy days.
I'm slightly puzzled why they started in Newcastle, went down and back up again, but whatever. I'm not the tour guide.
Yeah, it seems a bit odd, doesn't it? I think we said that we would love to start going to more of these tours.
Yeah.
I think location-wise, it's not ideal for us, is it really? Because if they would have been in Manchester or Liverpool, then I think we would have made
capital of culture, which we're not anymore. But whatever.
We would have made the trip. You know what I mean? But even though we've been to Newcastle before. You went to Newcastle with me, right?
We're not
that was it.
Anymore.
It was Newcastle.
Was it the Newcastle one? Yeah.
I think we went to Newcastle together. I don't think it was Sheffield. I think that one.
A bit of a trek.
Yeah, it was a bit of a trek. But yeah, so even though we've been to Newcastle before, I just think we're probably not going to make these, unfortunately. But the next time they come back to Manchester or Liverpool, we're going to be there. But I still have my hopes set on a AEW tour around November this year as well.
AEW are cool guys. AEW will come to Liverpool. Just
Bet they would, Bet they would. And if they do, we'll be there because I want to be there. So I think we are hoping to go to some future shows. It probably won't be these set of 4 just because of the locations. But yeah, touring again, crowds, people enjoying wrestling in person. Imagine. What a world we live in.
Just think, guys, you're going to get to see, because presumably it is still a televised episode of Raw or SmackDown.
Well, I think it's just a SmackDown tour, which is weird. So I think it's only SmackDown.
So, that works for me. Well, that makes sense, actually. The names they mentioned, the likes of Roman Reigns and Bayley and so on. And we're apparently not getting a draft this year by the sounds of it. So that makes a bit of sense. But, I think there's something to a British crowd when, you get the, ooh, yeah, and stuff like that. Just something magic about a British crowd.
Something different. A whole different point of view. So yeah, they're coming back over. Rejoice.
Yeah.
Everybody rejoice. So the next one to talk about is Chris Jericho has called out a number of superstars for mocking the bump that he took in Blood and Guts a few weeks ago. Months? It feels like it's been a while.
It does feel like it's been a while.
As we know, there was a lot of backlash from the bump that Jericho took off the top of the cage onto the kind of cardboard cutouts on the floor. And yeah, a lot of people were kind of quite negative about it and said it looked quite hokey, etc., etc. And some of them people happen to be WWE superstars. And Jericho is very much aware of that. And he has responded in an interesting slightly bitter, but also quite savage way. So he has come out and said, people laugh at that sort of stuff, but there's no reason to, because this is the real deal. It can happen at any time. Best of luck to anybody in our business, and anybody that bags on somebody who's taking a chance and putting their bodies on the line can really fuck off, especially people in the business. I could say some names. There's a couple of chicks in WWE who said some stuff, and they should probably not have said that. They probably weren't trained any better, and in 6 months they'll probably be asking us for a job anyway, and I'll remember that. So we'll leave it all at that. So
bitter.
damn.
Chris is bitter.
So I know one of the names who was called out specifically was Shotzi. So she,
she quite openly put that video up on Twitter at the time, didn't she?
Yeah. So I believe there's a couple of people within WWE, but there was a couple of the women of NXT and the main roster, but Shotzi being the most kind of outspoken about it. So interesting for Jericho.
This, because I found myself reading through Twitter, which can be quite a bitter place at times, but they were talking about the Eddie Kingston, I think, this week, Carl. And you might mention it, but it might not be mention worthy, but because it was actually off the air. But Eddie Kingston took a shot at WWE and their releases. And again, it was after the show went off the air, so I don't know if it'd be relevant to this week in wrestling. But it sparked this whole thing on Twitter of like, typical WWE living rent free in AEW's head, and you never catch WWE doing stuff like that and so on like that. And I'm like, but you do. You do though, don't you? Because that's exactly what happened. People took to social media and took the piss out of that spot, and they were WWE stars, and whether they like it or not, they represent WWE. So where do you draw the line? Like you're letting Eddie Kingston represent AEW, so surely their wrestlers represent them. So they do acknowledge them and they do take shots. So I don't know. They always try and make out it's so one-sided. Like,
yeah.
And I get it. Like, I do get it. Like, WWE are very careful not to really mention them on air, but that's just because they're petty enough they don't want to give them any free advertisement.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the main reason they don't take shots at them on air, but you still get shots at them all the time. And to be honest, I still reckon the Great American Bash, and we've mentioned this a few times, that the sign that they had to cover over the old logos because they just grabbed an old sign from the fucking back, right? But they were that quick to get the Great American Bash out off the ground because Cody wanted it. That was clearly a fucking shot at AEW as well. But
yeah,
no, WWE aren't petty. They're not petty at all.
It's it's an interesting place, the IWC, and I think we've probably spoke about this way too much, but there's people out there who are vehemently AEW fanboys and WWE fanboys and just enjoy wrestling. Just does it really matter? Yep. Just try and enjoy it. And
because that's honestly, right. And again, we say this way too much, so this is the last time I say it, I promise. Right, but you can't really pick either show as the best product in wrestling because they both have things that they do better than the other.
Mm-hmm.
Arguably, we could have one show where everything's on point, the production value, the star value, and the story value, but we don't. Neither show does that. So they're all shit, but great at the same time. We love wrestling. Yes. So,
honestly, we do.
So
sassy Jericho, basically.
Go.
Yeah, he's not, and he remembers. So if you ever smite the almighty Jericho, don't be looking for a job in AEW at any point. That's pretty much the story.
What have I become? Sorry. So the next one I've got, Carl, is rumor has it, and this is very much a rumor, that Kevin Owens may be taking some time off. So we saw, obviously, his very recent match at Hell in a Cell. The belief was that he would be taking some time away from WWE television after that. Obviously, we know that he is set to face Sami Zayn again to qualify for the Money in the Bank. And the suggestion, I suppose, would be that he's not going to qualify and we're going to have him off screen for a little while. But there has not been any strong suggestion as to why he needs some time off, whether he's just having a break, whether he needs to rehab something. We don't actually know. So this is all very, very early sort of mentions, really. It actually stems from a tweet from Kevin Owens himself where he says, "I fought like hell. Now I need a little break. I'll be back soon."
Well,
I mean, that
Anthony,
would have been like 5 minutes or so. I don't know.
some breaking news.
Oh, go on.
The time he's taken off isn't very long at all, because he'll be back next week on SmackDown. Because apparently it's been announced now that Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are going to have a Money in the Bank.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was. To me, that's the thing. Though I think, is he going to potentially lose the qualifier and then have his time off?
I mean, it seems weird though to tweet that
weird
before.
Arbitrary rule that people need to qualify for the Money in the Bank now.
I mean, we're going to come on to that.
I need to talk about that.
Yeah.
But just the random decision that people needed to qualify for it was the reason that they set this match up. And it's like, I don't know, if Kevin Owens loses it, then I'm like, well, is that him? Has he not qualified then? And therefore, is that when he's going to get his time off? And he just needed someone for Sami to fight so they could fill some time.
I mean, yeah, maybe. I think it's interesting, and if anything, it shows the WWE approach to booking things, of him going, yeah, I'm probably going to get my time off now that I've been promised, and then literally they've gone, yeah, we're going to book you next week though, and he's like, oh, I mean, fuck.
That tweet was before they released a load of people, so.
Well, yeah. Actually, we've got no one left. We were actually going to put Killian Dane up there against Sami Zayn because it rhymes, and that would be really fun. But yeah, now it's going to be you. So
sorry, you'll never get time off, Kevin. We're actually going to just rely on you and Sami for the mid card.
Well, it is Fight Forever, so yeah.
And ever.
But yeah, interesting. I think to be fair, if he loses, then yeah, I guess that means he is going to get time off. But if he ends up winning it, then who the fuck knows? Maybe it was that he had planned to have time off, and now they've gone, nah. But yeah, weird that he's ended up posting that tweet, and then now he's literally, on the next week. So,
indeed.
Strange.
So we shall see. We shall see what the future holds for one Kevin Owens, doomed to fight Sami Zayn till the end of time. I think.
Pretty much. So the next one to talk about is an update on AEW star Trent ? So as we know, he's been off telly. So that's how he stylizes his name. I'm not asking questions. But yeah, so he has been off TV for a little bit now, and it's because he has been suffering with a bit of a injury. So earlier in the year, he suffered a partially torn pectoral. He came back the end of March, I think it was. But he was having problems as well with his neck. And so he's now taken more time off, and he's actually undergone some neck fusion surgery. Now, I'm no doctor, but that sounds bad.
I mean, I'll be honest. If Edge can come back after all the stuff he's had done to his neck, it doesn't sound good, but not career ending by the seams.
I mean, fusion, his neck is now fused to something, so he can't move it, but he's back and will be taking bumps through arcade machines pretty soon. But yeah, so he's posted on Twitter.
They're going to be made of cardboard now and crash pads because can't take those sort of risks anymore.
That's it. So it's
don't you dare comment on it.
Metal and any chance of electrocution, then yeah, we'll go with it. But yeah, Trent has posted on Twitter that his neck fusion surgery went well. A picture of him in his hospital bed. So yeah, just a bit of a short one, but at the same time, glad
to know
that
the surgeries went well though.
Yeah, exactly. Glad that he's pulled through. Glad everything's okay, and hopefully we see him back soon, because obviously Chucky T has been pretty much invisible while Trent's been away, and so Orange Cassidy's just kind of there, and he's they've kind of teamed him up with Chris Statlander for some reason, and yeah, I don't know. I think it'd be nice to have the best friends back, and nice to have a healthy Trent. So yeah, fingers crossed for a speedy recovery.
Indeed. So, Carl, this next one, I am intrigued, and I think we've probably touched on these in the past, but we've never sat down and actually talked about them. And I'm interested on your perspective on this, right? So, Jay Cargill has very recently referred to the match, or the exhibition match between Floyd Mayweather and or Floyd Mayweather Jr., should I say, and not Jake Paul, the other one, Logan Paul, and basically, it's in rough. She hasn't said a great deal on it, but she's mentioned basically this fight is a work, quite clearly a work, and it's sort of sparked this whole debate about this sort of thing. Now, wrestling is well known at this point for being fake. Not fake, because people hate that term, being scripted and predetermined and so on. And, you know, that's the right term to use. Like, the matches are a work half the time, do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know why I said half the time, all the time. And there's an element of, like, well, you believe that, do you know what I mean? And is there, do you think, a bit of, or what do you make of this sort of thing? Because this isn't like, Floyd Mayweather is obviously, he's a really great boxer, and boxing is an actual sort of, you know, you won't know who the winner is kind of sport. You know, it's not predetermined in any sort of way. But there seems to be a going belief now when you get to these sort of exhibitions where you're having the likes of Logan Paul lasting unrealistically long against him compared to other boxers who have trained their lives for it. Or you get, like, the last one he had, I think, was when he went up against Conor McGregor. And you go, well, are these are done for show and these are done for money? And, you know, it's becoming, I suppose, more and more obvious that it is a work. Do you think there's a level of dishonesty of like, almost like the old carny days of wrestling where they're masquerading as something legit and convincing people, like, you know, anyone could win, because people are tuning in, they're spending the money in the hopes, realistically, of watching Logan Paul get knocked out, and then, like, obviously they don't deliver on that because it was never going to go that way, because they always knew it wasn't going to go that way. I think in this particular bout as well, they've referred to the fact that, you know, you could quite clearly see from a video that it looks like Floyd accidentally did knock him out at one point and, like, held him up for it, like, while he sort of gathered his head back again, you know what I mean? And that video seemed quite convincing. Admittedly, he recovered quite quickly, but it does look like he stopped him from landing on the floor. But what do you make of it? Do you think it is something that they should get frustrated about? Do you think it is something that they should be quite honest about? That it is, like, it's a show. It's not real, like they do with wrestling. What do you think Mayweather, the credibility of boxing?
Mayweather Paul was a farce. It was completely fake. You know, it was an exhibition match, and yeah, I think obviously there was a point there where he probably hit him a bit too stiff, and obviously he went to sleep pretty quickly, and it was like, oh shit. But you could tell as soon as we found out it was going to be an exhibition match that it was meant to get a massive payday for Floyd, and, you know, Logan. But let's be honest, Logan made a little bit of money. Was it Logan? Was it Logan? Was it Jake? Who knows?
No, it's Logan. Jake went against who did Jake fight? The MMA fighter. What was his name?
Askren.
You know, yes, Askren. Yeah, Askren.
Yeah, so
and that was another one where they go, oh, that was fake, like Askren shouldn't have lost. But that one even felt more realistic because everyone knows Askren is not a striker. So you go, well, he's took a grappler and said to him, you can't grapple.
Yeah.
So he gave himself a massive advantage. Whereas Mayweather, he's a hell of a boxer.
There's been a lot of stuff around that being a work as well. And I think obviously you see Askren, you know, going backstage, smiling with his missus, thinking, I've just made a bit of dollar here, you know, from taking a fall.
I do still think it was a work, but it's a more realistic one. It's more debatable, I think, than the Logan Paul one, because you go,
and I think,
like, all due respect to Logan, because he trains his ass off and he wants to be a legit boxer, but, you know, you've got fellas who've spent their lives and spent a lot more years training and getting absolutely decimated by Mayweather. Yeah. So it just doesn't feel realistic that Logan would go 8 rounds with him.
Yeah. No, not at all. You know, I don't think we can make comparables with Mayweather and McGregor, because that was a pro fight, and I think Mayweather knew there was no chance Conor was going to beat him, because Mayweather is an expert at not getting hit, and McGregor is used to doing 3 to 5 rounds.
And that, to be honest, that was sold by McGregor. McGregor knows how to talk, and he talked that into the money match that it was, even though, like you say, realistically, we all should have looked at that objectively and gone, he's not going to win that. But he's such a good talker that he got people believing that he's going to knock him out.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Mayweather...
You were never going to knock him out. Actually,
well, exactly. You know, Mayweather always knew that McGregor would punch himself out. He'd be knackered, and Mayweather never finishes anybody. His skill as a boxer is avoiding being hit and going the distance and winning on points. That is how he's made his career.
Yeah.
So for him to knock out Conor McGregor or TKO him, McGregor wouldn't have gone, oh yeah, you can TKO me if it was a work. Like, this was literally
No.
a fight.
Like you
But I
say,
think Mayweather
and
always knew that
McGregor would have been totally up for that anyway. To be fair,
Yeah.
I think he might have even believed himself that he could have done it. In all fairness, I think it's like when we look at it now and go, well, yeah, because you took away most of the tools in your arsenal.
Yeah.
To be a boxer for a sec, do you know what I mean? Like, again, McGregor, don't be wrong, he's much better striker than Askren, but even he's a much better grappler, and you took all his ground game away, so
Yeah.
of course it's going to be harder for him. But
No, definitely. But I think
shoulders on it, man.
they're on completely different levels, and I think Mayweather and Paul, it was just a farce. There was no way that should ever have been even sanctioned because it was fake. It was scripted. It was basically a payday for the pair of them. For whatever reason, the Paul brothers seem to have all this, fame and adoration of people, and everyone will tune in. At the end of the day, it was a payday for Mayweather, and the caveat was, well, you can't make me look bad. I don't want to lose. And so it was literally, well, we'll make it an exhibition, and I won't knock you out. It'll make it seem like you went the distance with Mayweather, and it was just so planned and predetermined. And for people who have a podcast around a combat sport that is completely predetermined, it probably sounds baffling for people when I go, I was fuming about it because boxing isn't a work sport. Boxing should be.
This is the bit I find interesting because, like, you are somebody who enjoys both sides, so you enjoy wrestling, knowing exactly what it is. And you enjoy MMA and you enjoy boxing, knowing exactly what it is. And I think it's that dishonesty, isn't it, that we're still trying to masquerade that boxing is what it is when this wasn't.
Yeah, and I think the media as well are terrible because they are making out like, oh fucking hell, Logan Paul went the distance with Mayweather, and it's like everyone knows it's a work. Like, why are you making out anything different? And then all that's going to happen is, well, what's next? You've already got fucking Jake Paul going up against some other fucking who is it? Can't even think.
Well, I've heard
he's
few
called
different
out someone
names.
else.
I've heard that he might be having a match against Tommy Fury, but I don't know how true that is.
Oh, okay.
Bear in mind, he's gone for Tommy Fury, not
Tyson.
Yeah. Tyson. Thank you. I lost his name for a sec. Yeah, and not Tyson. Tyson's a fucking freak of nature. Like,
yeah,
we've seen him stand up when he really should have been fucking down.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So like he's and honestly, I wonder, looking at the type of person Tyson's been up to now, I wondered if he even would go for the payday, whether he'd just be like, no, if we're going to do it, we have a proper match. So it kind of makes sense that it's Tommy he's going for rather than anyone. But I don't know if that's coming off or not, but I've heard mention of Tommy Fury anyway.
So I think the other name is another former MMA guy. So Tyron Woodley, he was the former welterweight champion. So he's gone after him again. Now, he isn't notorious for his striking, once again, but at the same time is someone who has been in the MMA game for a long time and had a contract that he felt he wasn't getting paid enough. He's recently been released, and so the writing's on the wall that he's now going to get paid and he's going to take a dive. And it's like, well, I don't get it. It's like literally people falling on their own sword to make the careers of the Paul brothers seem like something.
Thing is though, right, other than the dishonesty elements, and some of that you can be blamed on the media itself, I don't even blame the Paul brothers. Like, they've made some hella money from YouTube, right? And if I was in their shoes and I could I wanted to do something and I had the money to back it and I wanted to have a match with Mayweather and I would pay him whatever to get in there, then I would definitely go for it. I think I don't know whether it's a conscious effort on their part to sort of masquerade that it's anything more than what it is, or whether it's just the way the media are putting it across. Do you know what I mean? Because obviously they're still going to do like wrestling. You're still going to sell it, aren't you? You're still going to sell it for what you're pretending it is. But I don't know. Like, I kind of don't blame them because they're just two kids who've they've made their money and they've made their fame, and they can pay these people out to, like, do you know what I mean? It's that similar thing of going, like, they've got life-size action figures now, haven't they? You know what I mean? And yeah, it's just, I don't know. I'm not saying I judge them more, but I find it really it's interesting because Mayweather at some point may want to sort of get back in the ring with someone again, and then does that not potentially look like a blight on his record that he couldn't knock down Logan?
Well, I think that was done. You know, the reason that was an exhibition match was for that purpose, was because if it was a pro fight, he wouldn't go out of there. No, basically, an exhibition can end in a draw. Like, there was no winner.
Yeah,
so
but I know what you're saying. Like, there's an actual like record element to it because it's not a pro fight, but there's still a reputation element to it. Like, people saw that match. And all right, you could quite clearly see it was a work, I guess. But like, I don't know. Do you think that could affect his momentum, reputation wise? Well, you're willing to throw fights? Well, not throw fights, but you know what I mean.
Probably. But at the end of the day, he is so money motivated that he took the and he made a lot of money, which is probably again something which is baffling. Is how could you make so much money on something that was so clearly staged? But yeah, each to their own, and whatever the Paul brothers go on to do, more power to them. But the media making it out to be something is just pathetic.
Yeah, I'd have done it for a payday. Like, I mean, I could probably only offer Mayweather about a tenner, but
You'd probably fucking take it, to be fair. Yeah, wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah, David Federer and punch me in the face. Like, there you go. There's your exhibition. See you later.
There you go.
So the next I found it an interesting one, but it was a clear acknowledgement during the bout from Jade Cargill that it's a work, and I think the general thought seems to be the case.
Seems to be, and I think she's right in saying that too. So the next one to talk about. So we mentioned this. Did we mention this last week, or are we just being texting each other about this? But basically,
we've been talking about this. We haven't mentioned it.
So something that got circulated in the last week was WWE had hired a writer, and she went on a podcast and basically said that she didn't know anything about pro wrestling, and
I don't want us to put any professional wrestlers or talents involved with WWE. I don't want you to put you off going on podcasts. Fine.
We're not all like this. But yeah, so she went on a podcast and basically said she's been hired by WWE, which is weird because she has no knowledge of wrestling whatsoever. There's this one guy, Bobby Lashley, not really sure. But basically he's this big black dude, and I think he's part of this thing called the hair business, but now it's not the hair business. And basically that all got released. And so the reaction is, as you would imagine, is, well, what the fuck? This explains why wrestling's been so shit the last few weeks and months. And so, yeah, it didn't really... it went viral, but in all the wrong ways, I think. So that seems to have resulted in, unfortunately, Kenise Mobley losing her job before she'd even really gotten started with it.
I don't know this girl from Adam. Right? But that was a really fucking stupid thing to say.
Yeah.
Like, whether you knew or whatever you knew about the wrestling business before you got the job, maybe do your fucking research and don't admit that. Like, she couldn't even bother getting his name right and was involved with these storylines. Like, I'm not saying she deserved to be released, but you don't admit that shit. Like, imagine that working in any other line. Imagine you, like, turn around and are saying in, like, a meeting, right, in your work, openly saying in a meeting, I've no idea what my job entails, to be honest. But they hired me and I've been coming in every week, so, whatever. Like, imagine saying that publicly in your office and expecting no repercussion at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'd never say that publicly. No matter how true it might be, I'd never say it publicly.
No, but you know what I mean? It's like, that's basically what she's done. She's admitted she shouldn't be doing the job she's doing. And, like, are we meant to be shocked she got sacked for that? I don't want her to get sacked for that. I don't want to see anyone get sacked. But it's like, it's not difficult to research the product that you are about to write for. Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, so she made a massive mistake. Like, that was so silly of her to do. But at the same time, it has now shone a light on the types of characters and people that WWE are willing to hire to write for their shows. No wrestling experience whatsoever. She had some comedy writing experience, and so
Did she write the out stuff?
Maybe, but this, I don't. It's baffling to me. Like, we know Vince McMahon says, we make movies and, it's all about sports, entertainment, and, wrestling is a bit part of that. And yeah, okay, you need a lot of stuff to happen in order to sell a fight and to be interested in it. I get that. But you can't hire somebody who's got fucking zero knowledge of the wrestling business, who's just a comedy writer. What?
You might. Maybe you'd struggle with just a comedy writer. I reckon you might survive a lot longer if you hired someone from who was a soap opera writer.
Maybe. I mean,
no wrestling experience, but knew how to write really over the top drama.
If we think about Vince Russo, he had no wrestling experience. He basically came in and was like, I know what the fans want, and it's like soap opera type stuff. They want compelling storylines, and we're going to write that. And that worked for a while.
I want things on a pole. That's what I want.
Yeah. As many things as you can on a pole. But no, I think, it's a worrying sign for me, because the writing's been terrible. And if their solution to that is, well, let's hire someone who's got previous experience as a comedy writer, who knows nothing about the business and doesn't really care about the business, but she's just a writer. Like, what are they expecting? Like, what product is going to be delivered as a result of that for wrestling fans?
I mean, this is the thing, and I don't think this is going to hurt Bobby Ashley's storylines going forward anyway.
Yeah, Bobby Ashley is safe. But yeah, so silly move.
And if you'd like to say something that you probably shouldn't have said on a podcast, please contact us on.
Yeah,
kidding.
Do it.
So last one, Carl. Last one, and this is just a little bit of maybe a cheeky little bit of a thing here. And obviously, something he probably agreed with Andrade at the time. But we had a tweet from All Elite Wrestling on their Twitter handle saying, you hear that Miro and Kenny Omega better hold on tight to those belts. And then they included a picture of Andrade. Now, this led to a retweet from Miro, which said, this guy must think getting undeserved title shots runs in the family, which quite clearly is a shot towards his I assume fiance at this point. Apologies, I'm not quite sure of their status right now.
Who knows?
Charlotte Flair, who seems to just walk into title shots whenever she likes. Mm-hmm. Now, just a cheeky little tweet there, but I thought it interesting. So, firstly, Carl, what do you make of this? Clearly a shot at Charlotte, wasn't it? Or clearly
I fucking loved it. Fucking loved
Andrade,
it. No, it was brilliant. I think from if you think about
real life, some of the best
I mean,
from that.
If you think about Miro as well, like he has, he's gone through a bit of shit over the last year or two, and even when he arrived in AEW, he was given a lot of flack by fans of going like, "Oh yeah, you've left WWE because they had nothing for you. Now you're in this shitty storyline with Kip Sabian, yada yada yada." And now he's finally the TNT champion, potentially going to go into a feud with Andrade, and this kind of stuff is killing it for me. It's just that kind of. It's not petty. It's not silly. It's stuff that makes you just go, oh, okay. And that is exactly what Miro's capable of.
Yeah, and I think this is the type of thing that they should be doing. Like, as much as people, again, they'll jump on it, AEW taking shots at WWE and all that kind of crap. I'm like, it's better than pretending it doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. Andrade is with Charlotte Flair. She is a prominent character in WWE. That is a thing. You know what I mean? You can't act like that isn't, because it's even weirder to not ignore. I'm not saying you have to mention it every week or anything, but it's even weirder to deliberately avoid it. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think this sort of thing is definitely what they should be doing. It's a good way of them getting under each other's skin and building this feud between them, which is clearly where we need to go.
And I'm not fanboying over AEW or Miro, by the way, because I think the whole Miro and Brian Pillman Jr. shit that's happened at the minute doesn't make any sense, and we will talk about that. So I'm not just going, oh, AEW or oh, Miro, no. But this was the right kind of stuff for me, and I think if Miro does more of this kind of thing, it's only going to put him in good stead, I think, with the fans and just going forward in AEW, because it is just something where you see it and you just go, oh, fucking hell, that's savage, but in the best way. So,
indeed. So A nice quick little one to end the news there, Carl, but I thought it deserved a mention because it was a nice cheeky little tweet.
It was cheeky little tweets. That's what we offer on the Ringside Report. And don't go anywhere, because after these short messages, we'll be back to talk the very well titled The 10 Worst Moments in Pro Wrestling to Show a Non-Wrestling Fan. We'll be back after this.
You're watching or listening
to A to the K.
The A2theK.
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 These guys are awesome. Check it out.
Check it out. Change your life. You'll be thanking me later.